So here we are in George Floyd Square, a place where the emotions of a country seem to have come together to form this autonomous zone. With people demanding justice on one side and people demanding its removal on the other. And no one seeming to come to a conclusion on what to do or where to go from here. Shall we defund the police? Or shall we maybe reform the police? Is the discussion being had in the community today? And I think we can see from the scenario that's playing out as we speak, live before our eyes, in front of our hearts and souls, that this community is just tired and wants some form of change.
Philip, do you hear that? Come on.
Change the... What?
There's a shooting. They're shooting at us.
Oh,
Get
what?
down.
Oh.
Get down, you bloody idiot. Over there.
Down there? Oh. Oh, goodness.
Philip, get down. Come on.
Right. What do we do?
Get down.
Down like that? Oh, these new chinos. Okay. Well, excuse
get
me,
behind the car.
ladies and gentlemen. We have a,
He's been shot.
Oh, that one was...
Get behind the car. Come on.
We have a situation here.
God,
We'll
they're
be
coming
back
back
in a
round.
moment.
They're coming back round.
That does stop.
Get down, Philip.
Well, hello, and thank you for coming back. So, we're going to be dealing with some pretty hardcore topics today, and I think we're going to get ourselves in a shitload of trouble. So if you could like, share, and subscribe, as we all say, that would be very helpful to help us keep going, especially since they're running adverts on our channel now, and we ain't making a penny. So we need support, you know? All right, enough whinging. Let's get on with the show. So first up, we got warfare with a side dish of Hamas. So we're going to do a little history trip through time and space. And remember, I'm not a history channel, all right? And this took me a bloody long time. So if there's any errors here or there, it's just little ones that, you know, stick in your craw. Well then, please just remember, you know, it wasn't intentional and it wasn't malicious. So I'm just trying to add a little bit of context to the whole situation, a little pepper, a little salt, you know, season the whole business before we get to where we are today. And the whole situation, you know what I mean? So in 1914, after World War I, the subsequent breakup of the Ottoman Empire, Britain took control of most of the Middle East, including the area that is now modern Israel. And in 1936, there was the Arab Revolt. The Arabs in the region revolted against their UK and Jewish neighbours. The UK formed a task force, the Peel Commission, to study the cause of the rebellion. The reason, they concluded, was you had two peoples, the Jews and the Arabs, who both wanted to govern the same land. And the solution? A two-state solution. One for the Jews and one for the Arabs. So the land was divided with the largest share favouring the Arabs, who were offered 80% of the region by the UK. The Jews were offered 20%, which they accepted. But the Arabs rejected the offer and resumed their violent rebellion. So after World War II and the Holocaust of the Jews in the concentration camps, you know, the one we all know about, there was now the issue of the Jewish refugees, with many countries not wanting to take back their Jewish populations or closing their borders to the plight of these people. And centuries, after maybe millennia of Jewish persecution, the Israeli state seemed the only solution to their safety and somewhere that the Jews could just gather their refugees of the world and unite safely. In 1947, Britain asked the UN to find a new solution to the tensions in the region. But just like the Peel Commission, the UN came to the conclusion that the best solution again was a divide, the two-state solution. And in November of that year, the UN voted to create the two-state solution, and again the Jews accepted. But the Arabs declined by launching a war on the one-day-old nation of Israel. The Egyptian dictator, President Gamal Abdel Nasser, rallied up the Arab nations surrounding Israel with the only aim of being to destroy Israel. No country came to the aid of the Israelis during this conflict, with most, if not all, believing that the Israelis would lose, and thereby creating a bloody solution to the problem in the region, if the two-state solution was impossible. Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Egypt, and Lebanon joined the conflict against Israel, but Israel surprised everyone and won the war. They preemptively attacked Egypt and Syria. They offered Jordan peace, which was rejected, and Jordan joined the fight against them. And after Israel won the war, defending themselves from surrounding attackers, it set about building a new home finally. But they did take a lot of land, set aside by UN guidance, moving Palestinian populations across the border, leading to many issues we see with property rights and claims today. And Jordan retained control of the West Bank and East Jerusalem after this new divide, though tensions never decreased. In 1967, again, Egypt leads Syria and Jordan in an attempt to destroy the Jewish state, a conflict known as the Six-Day War, which ended in 6 days after a stunning victory for the Israelis, which fought off the 3 surrounding nations swiftly and efficiently. After the conflict, though, Israel took the territories of East Jerusalem and the West Bank, Gotham Heights in Syria, and Gaza and Sinai from Egypt. Only months later in the same year, the Arab League had a summit in Sudan where, after a discussion, they issued their 3 famous no's. No peace with Israel. No recognition of Israel. And no negotiation with Israel. Again, the 2-state solution rejected. In 1973, Israel survived another all-out attack by its neighbors, again pushing them back, which led to 1978, the Camp David Accord, which was signed, Israel giving back the entire Sinai Peninsula, an area of land bigger than Israel itself and rich in oil, back to Egypt along with Gaza, for the promise of peace, though this was considered greatly controversial by the Arab world. And unfortunately, President Sadat, the new leader of Egypt, wouldn't be able to keep the peace for very long as he was assassinated by Arab extremists at an army parade who were outraged at the peace agreements with Israel. Now, the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, was founded in 1964 with the sole purpose of liberating Palestine through armed struggle and eradicating Israel and exterminating its Jews. In 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon to kick the PLO out, along with its suicide bombers and rocket attacks. Though while this was happening, Jewish Zionist settlers began to move onto occupied Gaza and the West Bank, building homes, an issue still argued over today. From 1987 to 1993 was the first Intifada, a violent rebellion, which began with protests and boycotts, as they always do, huh? Think about it. But eventually became violent and didn't stop for years, with waves of hundreds of rocket attacks and suicide bombings, attacking the Israeli civilian population from the Gaza Strip, leading to Israel responding with force and both sides just bloody escalating in tactics and resentment. At the time, some radicals believed that the PLO was just too secular and political, man. You know, they were just too tame in their efforts to kill the Jews. So they formed Hamas, a violent Islamic extremist group dedicated to the death and destruction of Israel. So let's talk a little about Hamas. Now, in their charter, they say Israel exists and continues to exist till Islam obliterates it. That they are a racist and genocidal movement bent on destroying all the Jews through terrorist attacks and any other means. Then they list a whole bunch of anti-Semitic tropes, you know, the regular ones, you know, the ones that all the crazies share. Scheming Jews only care about amassing material wealth, controlling the world's media, and banks, you know what I mean? And they stir revolutions throughout the world, blaming World War I and World War II. Yeah, you heard it. The French Revolution and the Communist Revolution, all on the Jews. I mean, it really is an interesting bloody plan, isn't it? To commit genocide on yourselves, you know, through a Holocaust. But, hey, so they're crazy, racist, ideologically driven, and pathologically, they hate the Jews. So around the same time, in 1983, Hezbollah, the party of God, comes onto the scene, who are not just rogue terrorists, but actually control the country of Lebanon, after overthrowing the Shah of Iran in 1979, and are admittedly, you know, by its own leader, Hassan Nasrallah, an extension of Iran, funded by and spawned by the founders of the Iranian Revolution. Now, Nasrallah said, my friend, My friend, we are open about the fact the Hezbollah budget, its income, my friend, its expenses. Everything it eats and drinks, my friend. Its weapons and rockets, you know what I mean? My friend, it comes from the Islamic Republic of Iran. You understand, my friend? Now, Hezbollah is a military force, a political party, a terrorist organization, and a transnational criminal organization involved in money laundering, the fun one, drugs, arms, and people smuggling, and executing violent attacks for shady people. In 1984, they bombed the US Embassy Annex in Beirut, killing 24 people. In 1985, they hijacked TWA Flight 847, where they beat and tortured the passengers, killing one. In 1994, they attacked a Jewish community center, killing 85 people. In 1996, they attacked a housing community in Saudi Arabia, as the Sunnis and the Shia hate each other, and the two have been fighting for 1400 years in the desert about who should succeed Muhammad, killing another 19. And on it goes to this day. In 1993, the Oslo Accord was signed by both sides, establishing a Palestinian authority with self-governance in the hopes of the Palestinians creating their own state down the line. But Hamas launched a wave of suicide bombers to sabotage the process as a rejection and a retaliation for the event. So in the year 2000, I was clubbing. There was another attempt at trading land for peace. Israel leader Ehud Barak met at Camp David again with the PLO leader Yasser Arafat in the hopes of creating a peaceful two-state solution. Israel offered the Palestinians their own state, all of Gaza, 94% of the West Bank and East Jerusalem as the capital. And as the Lolita Express regular Bill Clinton said, Arafat was here 14 days and said no to everything, rejecting the offered agreement with Israel. And instead of peace, the PLO launched a wave of suicide bombing and terrorist attacks, killing 1,000 Israeli civilians and injuring many thousands more. 3,200 Palestinians were killed in the fighting. This was the Arabs' second intifada, much more violent, with decades of fighting and no ending or peace in sight. Either side becoming more skeptical that a resolution could ever be found. In 2005, Israel unilaterally withdraws from Gaza, giving the Palestinians complete control. And rather than using the time and the billions of dollars in aid it receives yearly to develop the region, Hamas, the democratically voted in terrorist organization, used the region of Gaza to set up a tactical headquarters, building tunnels to kill Israeli civilians, buying thousands of rockets to fire indiscriminately into Israel at its population. And this continues to this day, with Hamas keeping its people and land in poverty, receiving aid from ideologically guilty idiots, and using its own people as human shields, and relentlessly pursuing the elimination of every Jew in the region as violently as possible. And in 2008, Israeli PM Ehud Olmert went further than his previous namesake, expanding on the previous 2000 offer to include additional land. But the new Palestinian leader, Mahmoud Abbas, again rejected the offer, and attacks and retaliations occur from both sides to this day. And what we seem to have here is that one side wants the other dead. Israel wants to live as a Jewish state and in peace, as Dennis Prager said, and I think quite astutely, with Israel recognizing the Palestinian state and its right to peace, but the Arab nations surrounding Israel not recognizing its right to exist and its peace, which has been true ever since its creation by the UN, not the US, in 1947. Israel is a democratic nation, with free and open elections, free speech, religious tolerance, and free press, with an independent judiciary. It's a valuable trading nation with scientists involved in technological and pharmaceutical innovation, a critical ally in the Middle East and the world's struggle against Islamic terrorism. 1/5 of all citizens in Israel are Muslim, with exactly the same rights as everyone else. The same cannot be said in most Islamic countries around the world, with jizya taxes for non-Muslims and treating any infidel as a dhimmi or second-class citizen, with many Muslims occupying positions in courts or as journalists and in the government, with their own political party in the Israeli parliament, the Knesset. Muslims in the Israeli world or land are the freest in the Middle East, with even their prisoners being treated well, fed and given access to medical care, with the spouses of prisoners knowing where they are. This certainly cannot be said for the Arabic nations. Every military action Israel has ever taken has been to defend itself. It's not an aggressive state, said the 22nd Prime Minister of Canada, Stephen Harper. He continued with, it's a defensive state, true from its founding to this day. With Iran, Egypt, Iraq, Hamas, and Hezbollah trying to surround Israel with rockets and arms to strike any location in Israel with the hopes of initiating another war against the Jews. Well, on the other side, we sadly see Hamas indoctrinating its children with this racist and religious hatred, glorifying the deaths of jihadists, demonizing the Jews in every way, and wanting the extermination of every Jew and its lands. With the Hamas motto being, we love death as much as the Jews love life. Hamas not allowing free or fair elections in decades now, after they were voted in just once by a gullible and desperate population. Using their own people, women and children, as human shields to protect their fighters, while using the deaths of the Palestinians for propaganda, just for aid, weaponry, and supplies. There are 22 Islamic states around the world, spanning over a massive landmass and 3 continents. There is only one Jewish state, and it's the size of New Jersey or Wales. And not a whale, like not a whale, all right? The silly little quaint place, Wales, in the UK. With there being only 9 million Jews around the entire world compared to the 1.6 billion Muslims. There are 10 Jews in Egypt, population 100 million. There are 0 Jews in Jordan, population 10 million. 0 Jews in Saudi Arabia, population 34 million. 100 Jews in Lebanon, population 7 million. 0 Jews in Syria, population 17 million. 4 Jews in Iraq, population 39 million. 8,300 Jews in Iran, population 83 million. 0 Jews in Palestine, population 27 million. 0 Jews in Gaza, population 2 million. And this is just to give an idea of the figures of Jews outside the Western world. So one of the best rhetorical questions I heard about this was from Sam Harris, just to think about the situation effectively and from a simple angle. And it's this. Now, if Hamas and the surrounding Arab nations put down their weapons tomorrow, what would happen? Well, there would finally be peace in the region and between the opposing sides. And if Israel did the same and put down their weapons tomorrow, well, what would happen? Think about it. There would be a bloody genocide in which every Jew is slaughtered and every piece of property and infrastructure would just be obliterated. So UK Colonel Richard Kemp, who was a commander of the Britain's forces over in Afghanistan and a soldier in many of the major conflicts around the world since the 1980s, and this is a man you don't really want to fuck with, all right? I think he would crush my head like an orange, Now, Kemp says that there are 2 views of this conflict, the media and the truth, as per usual, right? And he says that the IDF does more to safeguard the rights of civilians in a combat zone than any other army in the history of warfare. And based on the fact that Israel is a decent country with Western values run on democratic principles. And Israel has never started a war. Now, Kemp says this as an admitted non-Jew. So Kemp continues by saying that the decency of the IDF was seen in the War of Gaza in 2014, which was purely a defensive war. Started by Hamas, where in the first 6 months of 2014, Hamas launched hundreds, if not thousands of rockets at Israeli civilians. And after repeated warnings by Israel to stop these attacks, the Israeli Air Force finally conducted precision strikes to halt the rocket fire. Now, the IDF advanced into Gaza to destroy a network of terror tunnels that Hamas had built to attack Israeli communities near the Gaza border. The IDF took extraordinary measures to give Gazan civilians notice of the targeted areas by dropping millions of leaflets, broadcasting on radio waves and sending text and emails, and tens of thousands of phone calls made personally by them to the Gazans to give them warning of where and when the strikes would happen, half an hour to an hour before. Kemp says, never in the history of warfare has an army phoned its enemies and told them where they were going to drop their bombs. With many IDF missions that could have been huge victories being aborted for fear of civilian casualties, increasing the risk to its own citizens and its own soldiers. Where Hamas, on the other hand, commits war crimes as official government policy, deliberately positioning military assets amongst its civilian population, hiding weapons in schools and hospitals, and placing rocket launchers alongside apartment buildings. then they force those civilians to stay in those areas that they know will be attacked in retaliation as human shields or just wartime propaganda. And Hamas also instructs its people to report the lie that every Gazan kill was a civilian, even if they were in fact fighters. And if there were no civilian deaths, then Hamas just, fabricates them. With numerous investigations showing Hamas staging sniper victims and smashed or burnt out ambulances, which has become so common the people have termed it Pallywood. And the leaders of Hamas, they best understand the extraordinary lengths that the IDF take to protect innocent civilian lives. And Hamas takes advantage of this decency and adherence to the laws of war, with no country or army in history or on earth right now taking such risks in order to protect civilians of a warring nation, especially those that surround it. These are the words of a commander who has seen much conflict around the world of almost all and every type. And even he admits this. So after all that, we're finally up to the events of the last week or so. Bloody hell, huh? So the Iran-backed Hamas has admitted firing hundreds, if not thousands of rockets at civilian populations in Israel, with the Israeli Iron Dome coming into full effect, stopping over 90% of all the rockets being fired at them, which is bloody incredible. You know what I mean? But that's still 10%, leading to widespread destruction and death, with the state sponsor of Hamas, Iran, cheering the Hamas attacks as revenge for an Israeli military strike on Iran, praising the death done to their enemy. Now, even the Biden administration has said that Israel has the right to defend itself against these horrific attacks, and well, that's surprising, isn't it? With even Sky News capturing the Hamas spokesperson openly admitting to committing war crimes. Here.
Any people under occupation, based on the international law, have all the right to defend themselves by all feasible means they have.
Not by firing rockets
Yes.
from a civilian
Yes.
population.
I have said it clearly. Palestinians, as an occupied people, have the right to defend themselves by all feasible means, including armed resistance. But when it comes to civilians, we have said it many times. We are ready to stop firing rockets or attacking civilians if the Israelis stop attacking our people.
Would you sit down with an Israeli to talk this through?
Why to sit with him? My demands are clear. I don't need to sit with him. We have achieved a lot without sitting with each other.
Openly saying that they fire rockets from civilian areas at civilian areas, despite the recent ceasefire. And Hamas supporters have been attacking Jewish homes outside of Jerusalem over the weekend, with the US Secretary of State saying that we have to cut a deal with Iran and reinstate the nuclear agreement. I mean, is he fucking crazy? Huh? Which was dismantled. Dismantled, man! Which was dismantled under Donald Trump. The state of Iran is a terrorist sponsor, admittedly, and if it were able to gain the awesome power of nuclear weapons, would instantly use them to wipe out Israel and its Jewish citizens, and then, bomb Saudi Arabia. We also had the Temple Mount conflict, again after the supposed ceasefire, where the Jew-hating members of the squad, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, blah, 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 pretty much all of them, saying that it was an Israeli attack on peaceful Palestinians. The Jews saying that they have to be guarded at all times from Palestinian worshippers, and was responding to the attacks on Jews in the area, where Arabs have free reign, effectively run by an Islamic bloc. The squad screams about Muslim genocide while they're talking about a defensive army. Yes, let's all admit, that makes mistakes, gets heated, does atrocities, does the wrong thing, goes too far sometimes, but overall is a defensive army. While China is enacting an actual genocide against Uyghur Muslims. And no one says a f***ing word, huh? No. What a funny world. We also have the AP, or Associate Press building in the region, being used by Hamas to launch attacks, while, as usual, using the people around them to shield them from the IDF. While the AP was also creating propaganda for Hamas, with the AP CEO saying, my organization had no idea that Hamas was in the building or active. Something they try to check, to the best of their ability, but never knowingly would they put their journalists at risk. Though Manny Friedman, a former AP worker, reported that rockets were launched from right beside the office building. And the AP just wouldn't report on it. Earplugs in, staring straight ahead, and just keep typing. Keep typing. Hamas would also come into the AP offices and bully the staff, making demands of them. Also, the AP would film civilians going to the hospital, turning off the cameras when the Hamas soldiers were brought in just a little bit later. This propaganda just hurting its own civilians. All while pro-Palestinian groups have been attacking Jews on the streets in cities around the world for over a week now, when they are just walking down the street or sitting at restaurants. I mean, even in this example, the Palestinians seem to be the aggressors, as we can see from these multiple examples here. With the far left and the Islamic hatred for Israel just being anti-Semitism, where they champion boycotts, sanctions, and talk freely and publicly about exterminating the Jews and its land. Even though the Arab sides openly admit to wanting to kill every Jew, written in their charters, their slogans, their actions, and even in their holy book, the Quran, along with the Sunnah and the Hadith, no other free and democratic nation is questioned to such an extent as the Jews and the IDF across the whole planet. This identity communism mixes racial exoticism with white guilt and resentment and Marxist power dynamics where brown and weak equals good, and Israel, who are basically just white people, the white devil, are just strong and considered evil. Though ironically, all these Marxists want for themselves is power, and to use that power to punish in a totalitarian fashion, as all communists want. With Islam being described by one of its apostates as communism with a god, showing just how easily the alliance can be formed. With, of course, there being a religious element to all this too. With the Jews thinking that if they can just get all the Jews into the Holy Land and all the Arabs out, then finally the Messiah will return. Finally. And the Islamists believing in Muhammad's last message before he died, which was to kill all infidels around the world and make it Muslim. The Christians hoping the Jews are somewhat right, as the Messiah will come, but he will be Christian and kill both the Jews and the Arabs and give the land and the world over to the Christians. So it looks like all this isn't going to end anytime soon, Not at 5:30. But I guess we'll just have to check in when the next thing undoubtedly happens. But I just give you some facts. Do with them what you will. So flip-flop Fauci flips on the fact that Wu flu comes from a lab, not a bat. Bull. So the slithering little Fauci and the mainstream media have all done a massive 540 indie flip and ended up backwards, falling on their faces with their debunking of the Wu flu lab theory for the past year. From Trump derangement syndrome to a big pile of brain shit. Maybe we should have just listened to all those people that have been cancelled and banned for the last year up to 2 months ago? Guys? Should we listen to them? Where before they were just wild conspiracy theories. Oh, they're mental, man, they're mental. Just Trump lies and white supremacist talking points pushed by the far right for the last year. They said this, creating all sorts of damage and destruction in their wake while pushing Chinese communist talking points and woke propaganda. Where we saw the media conglomerate that was so overcome with their hatred for a not that bad orange pumpkin person that they would immediately shut down, scream racism, and ban people from society just to push a narrative rather than just evaluate. Just have a 2-second look at it, at the option, before you stick it in the bin, yeah? And it seems like Fauci has just been basing his opinions on what he sees on the mainstream media day to day. Oh, it's a commercial. I love this commercial. It's a great one, this commercial. What? Oh, it's CNN. What are they saying about COVID? Oh, that's what I believe. Ha! Here. Reruns of Friends. Isn't Joey fat? Ugh. And also those unions that pay well enough, who in turn are just basing all their news and talking points on whatever happens to fall out of Fauci's arse that day. With both end up eventually getting caught and then just scrambling for cover, like those old commercials. If you see a volcano at school, just get under your desk and duck and cover. You'll be fine. Which is hard to keep up with when the media themselves are stealth editing and correcting their false stories and radical dismissals almost month by month of any theory outside of a bat. I am COVID. I am COVID. I am the COVID that I am the COVID that will free this city. I am COVID. I am the shadow. I'm smoking too much. Smoking too much for humour. Even though that when they tested over 60,000 bats in the region, they didn't find the virus just once. The specific bat in question actually lived 1,000 miles. If I could walk 1,000 miles away from Wuhan, I would have been hibernating at the bloody time. And we all know that they are retroactively editing their deceitful web of lies. They don't want to be seen as fallible. Because when that first domino falls, right? Because they don't want to be seen as fallible, huh? They are fixing the past to fall in line with the now, just like 1984. And we've already seen them say that 2 + 2 = bloody 5. Huh? This Wu Lab story, Wu Flu Lab, Wu Flu Flab, Flip Flab, Wu Lab story has come to kick them in the bloody arse. Also exposing their ineptitude, their duplicitous nature, and the zealous ideology that drives them ever forward. The mantra being, no truth, just power. Just power. And the lab theory always and again has had traction, with warnings all the way back to 2018 with Chinese doctors speaking out and then disappearing. Just boom. Where'd it go? Huh? Within days. Nobel Prize winners and some of the highest authorities in the Western world not disappearing, but being banned and cancelled. Kind of the same thing. You know what I mean? Their information disappearing with them over and over and over and over again. With big tech and the mainstream media censoring what they now acknowledge as truth today, misinformation. And look at them try to cover their tracks, huh? They consistently push an agenda and more consistently are bloody wrong. So Flipper Fauci at first said, you don't want to wear a mask. Oh, you don't want to wear one. Which was later admitted that was a lie. So that the medical staff wouldn't be at a loss in getting all that they needed before the public could, putting their lives at safety and the others at risk. Even though there was no eventual shortage and China had been buying up all the world's medical gear for months before they would even let us know that there was an actual problem coming. Oops, sorry. Oops. It just slipped on mine. Oopsie. China blaming it all on Europeans and American soldiers, if you haven't forgotten. Then Fauci said that you have to wear a mask, you know, and then you know what, you should wear 2 masks because it makes common sense, right? Another layer just equals more protection. So the CDC doesn't recommend double masking, or while the WHO says that we shouldn't have another lockdown, and that the lockdowns are just worse for society, you know, than combating the less than lethal virus that we all thought it was going to be worse. Now I got to try and find where that left me in my notes. So back down to what we're going back to 1 mask again. Even though 1 mask, we were all told that a mask doesn't stop the droplets that spread the virus. So it doesn't really help. But wear 7 masks. And now we have people bloody virtue signaling to show that they are not conservatives by wearing the masks while vaccinated, even during sexy, love, boom, boom time. The sexy, the boom, boom time. Sexy, boom, boom time. All after the CDC says we don't have to wear masks anymore. So phew. Bloody hard to keep up with, huh? And I'm just reading what they're saying. And being hard to keep up with has led to people not knowing what's happening from household to household. YouTube has been banning people left, right, and center, even if they were actual experts, doctors, virologists, or never had a previous strike and had built a career over many years building great channels and content. Gone in the blink of an eye. or an asshole. People were shamed in the streets. Businesses were shut down. Lives destroyed, cancelled and attacked. And people are still doing this. Huh? With teachers, doctors and the cops being seen freaking out and filming people or arresting others for not wearing a mask in certain situations or places. All while riots were happening for a year, remember? And all for contradicting a TV doctor, not an expert, with ties to gain-of-function research, who has said every point on every side at one point, at some point, repeatedly. Huh? Anyone who says that the Wu Lab theory has been or ever was debunked is lying to you. It never was. It was censored and hidden away by big tech and the mainstream media to protect China and punish Trump and his supporters. To push a narrative not seem racist. Let me take a knee for 9 minutes in African garb and not seem racist. To not destroy economic ties with a terrible government whose children make shit cheap for our children, huh? So we keep our mouths shut. Now big tech and the mainstream media are trying to save face and cover their steps from each and every lie or obfuscation that they threw out for the last year. But it seems that Fauci has always been tucked in the little pocket. You know what I mean? Right in here, son. Stick it in there. And I'll go to the toilets and leave one for you on the toilet lid. Yeah? He's always been in league with the old Chinese Communist Party, from his ties with the Wuhan lab and providing funding to it and its gain-of-function virological research that might have been the bloody epicenter of the whole catastrophe. Where even in 2019, 3 researchers from the Wuhan Institute of Virology got sick with the same exact symptoms and were admitted to hospital where they disappeared. Where did they go to? I don't know. And this was known months before by the CCP and was never told to the world. And they yell at Trump. Because if he'd only done this, if Trump had done this 6 hours before, 6 hours, we could have saved a black kitten. He's racist. And the fucking Chinese government knew months before or longer and kept it kept it stum from everybody. Lab or bat or whatever it is. But that isn't part of any of this, huh? Why aren't we talking about this?
Oh, because it's an inconvenient truth, mate.
Oh. Well, there you go then. So the narrative has now become, you must get the vaccine. The vaccine is good. The vaccine is freedom and normality. Everyone should get the vaccine, and if you don't, you'll be singled out, targeted, ostracized, and cancelled from society. The vaccine is good. That is all. Science, death rates, age of greatest impact, herd immunity, or the fact that now enough have the vaccine for all of us to get on with our lives. None of that, all of that be damned, huh? And now we have another Project Veritas whistleblower, 2, and these are amazing, aren't they? These are f***ing great. I love them. Saying that Facebook's goal is to greatly reduce vaccine hesitancy in posts on a global scale, where they have a vaccine hesitancy score for each and every user. 7. She's got tits, 29. That's how I do it. Titties, 947. Boring nerdy guy in his room, 3. Bring in the money without a titty. And based on this score, they can demote or censor comments and content, all while coordinating with Flip-Flop Fauci's CDC and the CCP's WHO. Word to your mom. So this really is an order of black bean bat and broccoli with a side order of shit show. Espionage and global cover-ups for pudding. So Lori Lightfoot did a racist. Ha! So the 56th mayor of Chicago, Lori, she who creep with racist and look like fish, Lightfoot, has declared that she will only be taking interviews prioritizing POC reporters and women as well. Basically saying that all us white male devils can fuck off. Which is strange from a woman who is married to a white woman, like Don Lemon, who also thinks that white men are the greatest existential threat to America, though he himself is married to one. Hang on. Wait. I think I see a pattern here. So these two gay liberals who are married to white partners both think that white people are effectively the devil, right? I mean, maybe their partners are the racists? Huh? As liberals are obsessed with race to the point of madness. And it can't be easy walking around on those racist eggshells, especially with two progressives locked in the same house. I mean, race has to be a constant thought in the back of your minds, huh? Maybe you think white people are racist because you and your partners are racist? Because you judge every aspect of everyday living and every element of your life through the prism of race. Then marry guilty white progressive gay liberals who are obsessed with race themselves. And I think you just ended up with a big old confusing mess of racism and anxiety and guilt and projection onto the wider world. Anyway, sorry. I digress. Okay. Tulsi Gabbard, who seems to be liked more and more by the minute, by everyone on all sides, and especially by people who have brains. And it's always nice to see a red pill moment happen before your eyes, isn't it? It's very sweet. From shadow banning to calling out POC racist, it's like a Hawaiian version of Oliver Twist, It's beautiful, with a hotter protagonist. Well, she has called for the firing of Laurie Tiptoes with Racists for her anti-white racism, to which Lightfoot has doubled down and added seasoning of sexism into the whole mix. And who's surprised that she didn't like men, huh? Surprised? Now, this may actually be a violation of constitutional provisions and law with someone who holds a public office, a government position, and is openly discriminating based on the characteristics of race and sex as her actual policy. Using racism as an open political strategy, showing just how nuts these progressives and those taking over the Democratic Party have become. It's clear that they are and want increased racism. Segregation 2.0. That wasn't, don't do it. Don't do it. I know what you're thinking. Race-based equity and equal outcomes. Basically full-blown discrimination based on a subjective hierarchy of race and perceived oppression. That ends with communist equity-based outcomes. And voila. Identity communism, right? And it makes sense when you think about it. Of course it makes sense, Come on then, off to the gulags. Come on, let's go. But this is a mainstream Democrat openly and publicly saying all of this bloody madness, and we don't even need to do that if the races were swapped test with this. You know that test? If we swap we don't need to do that one on this one. And it's just accepted. It's shrugged off, man. Fuck it. And in some parts embraced and celebrated by the party and the mainstream media lackeys. And after subjecting society with false narrative after false narrative, decade after decade, and when it's finally exposed by the likes of someone like Thomas Sowell or Christopher Hitchens, well, then those responsible either continue on with their next fire that they are trying to set, they just start a new fire over here, or fade into obscurity and are never punished or held accountable for the damage that they have caused. Just setting fires. Put that one out. There's one here. Put it out with your foot, Brian. So this is not only racist against white people, but in some ways it's most of all deeply racist to black people and people of color. Ugh, I hate that term, which is a term they love just so that it sounds like, one of their favorite terms, color people. Color people. Colored 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people. Colored people. Well, we have to beat that.
Yeah, because I want to go home tonight.
Okay.
What, are you trying to get us killed?
Thinking that POCs only think, feel, act, and speak based solely on race, And that only races that are alike like each other, and understand. And that black people will be favourable to her and think just like her, because it's I don't understand because of my privilege, being the old white colonializer. Sorry. Forgetting that ideas are a spectrum that can occur or be shared in the minds of any race or any sex. I mean, having a white pussy doesn't mean you think the same as others with white pussies. I mean, right? You understand that? And you understand how insane that is to say, right? I mean, it's just outright racism. And also a complete ignorance of even your own race and culture. I mean, it's like Thomas Sowell, Larry Elder, Candace Owens, Tim Scott. I mean, many more. They don't even bloody exist. And I'm going to keep saying the name Thomas Sowell so it slips in there. Not like sublet, it's like liminal messaging, yeah? overtly telling you to just go read his bloody work. Please. I mean, the hypocrisy of this bloody woman and those like her is astounding. Where she claims to be fighting racism, but is racist. She wants the equality of the sexes by castrating men. Another one having these bloody haircuts while they lock you in your houses and shut down your businesses. Huh? They talk about the 8 white supremacists that are left in the country somewhere, when there were 46 shootings in one weekend on the streets, along with every other violent crime that is skyrocketing due to anti-police sentiment and the progressives' defunding of their law enforcement. I mean, she's spreading the last few officers that are left. I mean, even thinner. There must be one bloody cop left in these cities, man. Huh? Even thinner, even further, and with less and less. They're obsessed with a fake form of diversity, manufactured and inclusion, but employ directly opposite tactics in their normal life, using racism and segregated exclusion. It's like having a barrel on your pistol, right, that circles all the way around and fires in the back of your own head. I mean, it's going to take a little bit longer to get there, but it's really going to fucking hurt when it gets... But this identity communism seems to be spreading like wildfire, huh? Throughout the progressive left and the actual liberals that are left in the Democratic Party, if there are any, going all the way up to the top, with President Biden now being sued for racist discrimination when it came to the triage of distributing the $2.6 billion relief fund, basing those who receive that help first of that finite amount, so once it's gone, was based solely on the characteristic of race. I mean, that's pretty ugly. That's pretty ugly, that is. Huh? So now it's the American Rescue Plan. Lump that in. Huh? How about some little racist graduations? Huh? At Portland University. Sprinkle in some interviews with political figures only based on race, huh? And test scores, Asians, anti-Asian test scores at colleges. Jail terms for equivalent crimes, huh? And seeing your kids after a divorce, we'll pop that in. And the COVID relief plan, solely based or just for black farmers. And on it goes, huh? All supported, encouraged and demanded by the far left and spinelessly adopted by those who claim to be liberal, or spinelessly adopted by those Republicans who aren't doing anything about it, except for like 2 of them. While those who oppose it, they just hide in fear of the mob. Radical politics, huh? Ain't pretty, folks. Oh, no, 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 it ain't pretty. No, no, no. No, 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 no. So Andrew Brown, and round this one goes. So this all happened on April 21st of the year of our Lord, 2021, where the 47-year-old Andrew Brown Jr. was killed by the police serving a warrant for his arrest and to conduct a search of his residence. Now, Andrew Brown was caught selling both cocaine and the infamous lethal fentanyl-laced heroin on 2 separate occasions to undercover officers. Now, the DEA has said that after a comprehensive study by the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, the shooting, while tragic, was justified, and the officers involved will not be charged. The actions of Andrew Brown caused the deputies to use deadly force to protect themselves and others. Now, there's a huge amount of attention surrounding the case before the footage was even released to the public, with the family and lawyers doing huge press conferences, calling the situation a cold-blooded murder and a public execution, pure and simple, with members of the crowd yelling, "The streets gon' get justice. They gon' get it." With Andrew Brown just trying to flee the scene because he was scared and gunned down for no reason. With the usual race hustlers like Al Sharpton dusting off his old bone, my dusty old bones, and jumping in front of the cameras alongside BLM, Antifa, who are protesting. And by that, I really mean attacking people, breaking stuff, and burning down buildings, you know? And remember, no one had seen anything yet. Now, the footage starts when the police arrive on scene with what looks like 4 officers in the back of a pickup truck wearing tactical gear and fully armed. They box Andrew Brown in his car by driving the truck in front and quickly surrounding the car with their guns, drawn and yelling for him to surrender, which he absolutely should have bloody done. I mean, if I've got 100 guns pointed at me, at some point you got to go, all right, guys, I think you got me. But unfortunately, Andrew Brown decides to ram the officers in an attempt to flee. And just a little context of the scenario. If you hit someone with a car, you are charged with assault with a deadly weapon, as the average car weighs 4,094 pounds or 1,857 kilograms, depending on where you are in the world. And that really fucking hurts when it hits you, all right? Some might say lethal. And as I said, Andrew Brown reverses and doesn't just keep going back, doesn't keep going backwards, man. That way. No, he doesn't do that, which may have altered the police's reaction. It may have. But he stops, puts the car into drive, being America, and floors the car in an attempt to ram the cops and flee, driving at and hitting one of the officers with his car, who just about are able to move out of the way. And after he breaks away, the police decides, as he was a definite danger to themselves, and most likely is going to be a danger on that bloody highway with them chasing a million miles per hour, and who knows if he kills himself or other people. They fire on the car, killing Andrew Brown, and his car comes to a stop about 100 feet up the road. Though it depends on what you view as reasonable force, doesn't it? Is it reasonable force shooting just after being rammed by what can be perceived as a deadly weapon? And that is a word salad, but that's what it is. Sorry, hard to say. Also, it comes down to whether you think that after attempting to possibly kill one or more of the police officers, and then a definite considered threat to the public after that, do they have the right to fire at the fleeing suspect or give chase? These are the options. But this is also tragic because Andrew Brown leaves behind 7 children who are all fatherless now because of his actions, it seems. His drug dealing, his living that life, rather than just putting up his hands and not ramming the police in an attempt to flee. If he did that, he would still be alive. But again, we see someone making all of the worst decisions prior and during the arrest, leading to the worst case outcome for all of those involved. Surely jail is better than death, huh? I mean, if you just put up your hands and comply, no matter how unjustified you feel the arrest is, if you just comply, tomorrow you can have your day in court and not be put in a fucking coffin. Crowder! Strike 2! Shit! So Stephen Crowder has been suspended for 2 weeks after being given a warning and 2 strikes in quick succession, man. Quick. And in return is suing YouTube, and everyone's bloody excited about this one. Just to say, hey, let's give him a shout out. You can follow him on Rumble, where he seems to be constantly uploading all of his videos in the meantime, and some other streaming services, you know. A huge boost for Rumble, who has had a giant pluck them out of global obscurity by him. So this all started way back. Once upon a time, this started. This all started way back when with the Vox Adpocalypse, where Crowder was demonetized completely, even though he broke a no policy, for making fun of one of the reporters at Vox, Carlos Maza, using his own self-described terms against him to ridicule him. Now, Crowder is one of the largest, if not the largest, conservative voices in the world, getting more views, clicks, likes, shares, and comments than every other show on the mainstream media, some of them even combined, and is a serious threat to both them and YouTube. And after a little help from the awesome half-Asian Bill Richmond, they were remonetized, but only a few months later. So his first warning number 1, came from a segment on the show where he actually had members of his staff and the show go to locations in Nevada and Michigan, showing a copy of the day's paper and date at vacant or non-existent locations used as addresses for mail-in votes for Biden. And it was an interesting episode where they said they had many more addresses that they could have gone to, but just didn't have the time or the manpower. But the list went bloody on. Oh, no. And you can do it yourselves if you want to. And the episode was taken down by the powers that be, even though what was on the footage was never disputed or shown to be false. And on a side note, they also took down Crowder's largest election stream ever held. The largest one ever. Right in the middle of it. So this isn't out of the usual if you don't know your history. All right? So here's strike 1. Came during his March 18th episode, 1-year anniversary, 15 days to flatten the curve, in relation to his opinions on government COVID policies. Now, I can't say the exact phrase that he said, as I'm just I am just but an ant. I am but a small person in his humble presence. But I let Crowder tell him himself when he spoke to Michael Knowles on his show recently.
The COVID one, we did a 1-year anniversary to 15 days to flatten the curve. And we went through the sequence of all of the science. So, for example, we had a montage of Fauci saying, don't wear a mask. A mask is actually worse because people touch their face and touching their face. And then we had him saying, do wear a mask, with the Surgeon General saying, stop buying masks, and then saying, do buy a mask. Then we had him saying, double masking is unnecessary. You guys should double masking. So we went through all of this, right? But I believe the statement that got us into trouble, and I'm sorry, hopefully it doesn't get anyone in trouble, was something along the lines of, and so I will make sure that it's not specific, but we brought up an image of the CDC mortality charts and said COVID is significantly more lethal than the flu to old people. And we need to recognize that and treat it properly. For some reason, it's significantly less lethal than the flu exclusively to young people.
Yeah.
That was it.
Not really the Alex Jones material perhaps you were all probably expecting, and something I think everyone just kind of knew, huh? Now he's stuck here! Now, this led to his 2-week suspension, which he's suing for in kind. This was his Micaiah Bryant Columbus shooting video, where YouTube said that he had violated guidelines on harassment, claiming that they reveled in the death of an identifiable person, which it didn't happen, all right? As you can see him explain here.
The recent strike was, let me be as clear as, I'm trying to be as succinct as possible so I don't bore people. Remember the police officer, the hero who saved a young girl of color in Ohio who was about to be stabbed?
No, I'm sorry. I only remember the vicious monster who wouldn't even allow that young, wonderful girl to stab the other girl to death and who was imposing his white supremacy on her. Yeah.
Yes. Ed Furlong in a bomber jacket. Yes, correct. No, so we talked about this on air, and I said, not only do I think this was a justified shooting, I think it was a necessary shooting of the police officer. I think it'd be an abdication of duty if you don't shoot someone while they are attempting to penetrate someone's flesh with a knife.
Yes.
That was considered broadly harassment, bullying because of reveling in the death of apparently Micaiah Bryant, which we did not do.
Him praising a cop, you know, I think we can all agree, a hero, who dealt with a horrific situation in the calmest way while saving someone's life in the process. Yeah, the bad guy. So Steven Crowder is now concerned that YouTube is looking for a third strike 3. I don't know why baseball's Japanese. Strike 3. Okay, it is. A violation just to permanently ban his channel, even if they find it in his old content, which they previously allowed. So he's looking for a half-Asian Bill Richmond to Hadouken down for the punch. Big tech. As YouTube has a pattern of applying or stretching policies in order to harm certain channels with contrary opinions to their own, seeming only to ban conservatives, that's it, and the occasional, bloody crazy leftist loony so they can say it in court when they have to. And they have a history of applying these rules unfairly to some channels and not applying them to others. So Steven Crowder is suing the tech giants as they are stopping debate and dialogue, which only leads to violence. It only leads to violence. Okay, it's complicated. They are eradicating ideas from society, even those that are really quite they're quite valuable right now. These are, we need some of these, yeah. Trying to socially engineer masses to become slaves to a government handout, adopting a globalist Great Reset mindset, and just do and think what we tell you, huh? Don't even think about it, dude.
Yeah, I mean, the CDC is like this whole governmental body with scientists and shit that just tell us what to do. You don't have to think about it, dude.
And a third strike would mean a permanent ban and deplatforming of his channel, and the largest conservative channel of all time. Destroying his business, which has taken over a decade to create. The 12 to 15 employees that he has, I mean, they took his job. You took my job. And it would also take their livelihood away from him and his workers that have worked so hard for so long and that so many people love. And this would also pave the way for them to ban any other channel equal or smaller than Crowder that they don't like or want heard. And there is no equal to Crowder. You get it? So we're all fucking fucked, mate. It's over, man. It's over. It's fucking over, man. This would open the floodgates for massive censorship across the Western world, regardless of laws on speech, freedom, or business. So we all wait. with bated breath to see what will the outcome be, what precedent will be set. For this defines the future of each and every one of us. And it also defines the future of censorship for us all. And all this while Antifa, BLM, the Ayatollah Khomeini, f***ing Hamas, Sinn Féin, the PLO, Ilhan Omar, and OJ Bloody Simpson, for God's sake, and many others far worse than Crowder, are still happy and thriving on social media without issue or censorship. Stephen Crowder said in a conversation with his lawyer, Half Asian Bill, that he is pro-business but anti-fraud. YouTube can lie and say it's open to everyone, that they don't discriminate based on political ideology, race, or religion, then turn around and actually do that repeatedly and obviously, both expressly and through the software they implement, with their bias being clear through their enforcement policy. The reason for this, they need creators for ad revenue and to drive up their numbers of users day by day. All they have is eyeballs and ears, man. All they have is eyeballs and ears, you know? And fingernails up the spine, just like everyone else, right? Their business is your data, but they want to steer and control that data and information while selling as many ads on it as possible, thus making as much fucking money as possible. The lawsuit is an injunctive relief, basically just trying to stop the constant YouTube attacks on them and the channel, the throttling both actively and secretly, the anti-competitive behavior, listening to the lies of random eggs, you know, bloody random eggs that scream everything on Twitter, and the mainstream media corporations which are losing. Competitors. They're just losing, man. And who might just have an interest in him being taken out and his company being shut down? Huh? You think? You think? So Crowder uses his own particular style to expose, and we all love it, don't we? We all fucking love it. To expose the hypocrisy of the political, social, and medical world at the moment, which is oh so needed. His sources for the episodes in question, and most of his work, is the CDC, the WHO themselves, the FBI, and others such as Pew Research polls and others, which are credible. Well, maybe not some of them now, But Stephen Crowder is about as mainstream conservative as it comes. I mean, he's God, he's country, and he sees f***ing guns. He's pretty milquetoast conservative, if a little comedically edgy, And if he goes, we're all f***ing done. So please, go check out his channel right now on Rumble and at louderwithcrowder.com. He should be back on YouTube in the next week or so, and sign up to his mug club. Because Crowder is fighting for all of us right now. Crowder! So in our Andale, arriba section. So both the Russians and the USA have released army recruitment ads with very different tones, looking for very different recruits. With the Russians looking for the kill your f***ing grandma while she sleeps, Jason Statham muscle bound, I hit man, I barcode on backhead. And the Americans seemingly to go for I'm a woke girl from LA, as we can see from the clip here. And I mean, you do realize, Western world, that if America goes, oh, that's it, folks, you get it? China has outright banned feminism and thinks it makes men weak. The other scary nations, nations, are enforcing masculinity while America and the West denigrates it as toxic. And we change our little boys into little girls before they can spell their own names, With the socialists in our midst praising China's one-child policy. I mean, there's no Europe. Listen. Let's get real, all right? Let's get serious on this. There is no Europe fighting the Russians, the Middle East, and the Chinese aggressions, all right? They're just bloody isn't, yeah? What do you think Sweden's going to do, They're just going to sell weapons to everyone again. This being the only time in history, perhaps we all hope the sentiment get woke, go broke, doesn't turn out to be true as all the other times. Okay, we have two feel-good stories that go against the narratives being pushed in everyone's face constantly by the mainstream media. We have Gloucester County Sheriff Deputy John Holt literally single-handedly lifting a car off a Virginia mother who was thrown outside the vehicle after a car flipped in a crash. With her son crying and panicking beside his mum, the officer, who luckily has the physique of a f***ing grizzly bear, was able to lift his car, rescuing the woman and receiving local and regional awards for his heroic act. And in other anti-narrative news from around the world, we have the mythological good guy once again appeared out of thin f***ing air to stop a mass shooter after he killed 87-year-old Lois Hicks and before he could kill anyone else. The neighbor, who hasn't been identified yet, ran inside his apartment, grabbed his rifle, and thankfully put down the killer before he could do any more bloody damage. So whoever you are, out there in Arkansas, everyone owes you a f***ing drink. Well done, man. So John Cena blows China. Oh, sorry, I read that. I read that wrong. John Cena bows to China. Excuse me. So the roided up wrestler who made the mistake of accidentally suggesting that Taiwan was its own country, its own nation with its own rulers and military that the US supplies and its own laws, and not that of the Red Empire of the East or China's. Well, they disagree. We disagree. This is wrong. Apologize. And they are Hollywood's money source at the moment. So after the little faux pas, John Cena hurriedly released a video speaking in bloody Mandarin, which all right. It's impressive, but it just makes it a bit more... Basically dismissing a population of 23.57 million people to Chinese imperialism, totalitarian rule, and all the barbarousness that comes from conforming to the CCP. I mean, this man, yeah, all right, he could crush every bone in my body, yeah? Probably with one hand, yeah? Me done. That's me done. But if I was able to, I would get up and try and face him again. Where he hasn't even sustained one scratch, and he is already bowing to the Chinese government. Just for greed. I don't want to play anymore. I don't want to play. Meanwhile, machete-wielding ICE fanatics slaughtered 22 people in a village in northeast Democratic Republic of Congo, including women and children, with at least 13 people being bound up and beheaded in the massacre, the Congolese military say. So the ADF, who has links with ISIS since somewhere in 2019, has been declared a domestic terrorist group due to the fact that it wants to overthrow the Ugandan government and create an Islamic state in its place, using terrorist tactics to achieve this means, just like Britain and France. This also includes the murder of 849 civilians in 2020, with around 500 more since the start of the year. The West just seeming to play... It's just jihadi whack-a-mole, isn't it? Huh? With terrorist organizations and ISIS. Do I have to do that? All right. So Demi Lovato comes out as non-binary, which effectively means she came out as pay attention. Pay attention. Pay attention to me over here, everyone. Look at me. Look at me. Oh, it's a silly person. Okay, so this one's a swings and roundabouts type of scenario, okay? We got a little bit of hilarious and we got a little bit of bad, all right? So sit back and enjoy. Now we have an actual shooting at the no-go George Floyd Autonomous Zone in Minneapolis on the actual bloody anniversary of the poor guy's death. The shootout was shown around the world while a reporter was speaking live to cameras, so we got to see the over 30-shot incident take place. It's 1 year since BLM took over, and they just made everything worse for the communities that they say they want to change and help, right? They always do it, and what happens? They always end up destroying it. It bloody happens every time, doesn't it? Huh? So that's the sad or the bad, that this even happened, or the fact that this wasn't even the first or the second time that this has actually happened there, all right? It's bloody lawless. Even though on this instance, no one was thankfully killed, with only one person being shot by the drive-by vehicle that seemed to drive around the block 3 or 4 100 times just to, get the right shot and make sure they were lined up and they could get a selfie and all of this, and get the person that they were after. All right? All right. So the funny. The hysterical part of this whole situation is this guy, Philip Crowther, who is a Luxembourg British reporter who was live at the time. Now, the reason I bring up he's British, all right, because if this isn't the most British reaction to a drive-by shooting where over 30 bullets have been shot randomly and in your general direction, then I don't know what is. It's that kind of British, oblivious nature, bumbling along while whistling, country songs and picking flowers, isn't it? And this must have been a bloody rural private school boy back in Britain for sure. I mean, soggy biscuit, if you know what that means. So enjoy. The fundamental reason the British lost the Americans all those bloody years ago is we're a bit silly. and British. Rule Britannia!
Look, it's not going to be signed in time, at least according to the timeline that the White House and US President Joe Biden had. They wanted this bill of comprehensive police reform to be... Just got to be careful here with some gunshots. Excuse us, excuse us. It sounds like gunshots. I'll let you know what this is. These seem to be gunshots.
So the CDC has said that the US people can finally take off their masks after 12 months to slow the curve, and woke leftists are refusing to take them off just to signal their virtue for the sole purpose of not being seen as conservatives. Because this was never about listening to the science. It was about tribalism and control. And if you don't believe me, then look at the numbers of Florida or Texas, who have completely opened up with no restrictions, and those of any, you pick it, pick any major Democrat-run city or state, and then get back to me, huh? I'll wait. I'll wait. So this is a sad one, all right? In the UK, 5 drug dealers, as they are being called, are being held for the attempted murder of the high-profile BLM activist and self-professed Black Panther of Oxford, who has rallied for the defunding of police, claiming police, the system, and the entire UK is systemically racist and has to be dismantled. The 5 men, all aged between 17 and 23, ran into a garden during a party and shot into the crowd while also stabbing people before they fled. Now, there was no evidence to suggest that she was being targeted for her political beliefs. She and the 5 men who have been charged are all black, so it couldn't have been a racist incident. But it seems to have been a gang and drug-related shooting, a problem that is increasing in number year by year in the UK dramatically. Though we profess to the world to be a country who's morally... Listen, we're grown up, all right? We're just superior, yeah? We're superior, and we have no need for guns, you know, for the self-protection of law-abiding citizens, so we don't have them. We don't have them. Yeah, but we still have gun crime, and lots of it, and against the innocent, because the bad ones don't follow the bloody laws. Now, the reason this is tragic is because even though she ironically supports and cried for the very policies that led to the violent crimes spiraling out of control and her effectively being shot, you know, defund the police, crush the systemically racist system, disregard law, hate those police, kill them mans, and hating the country at large. And though she would have called me privileged, she would have called me the problem, just a white male in no position to have an opinion. She would have called me a racist, a sexist, a xenophobe, an Islamophobe, yada, yada, yada. I don't want her dead. I don't want, or would never want her dead. Never. Though perhaps if she had the chance free of consequence, she would probably not wish the same for me. This loss of speech and dialogue and free expression we used to have has meant that dialogue is no longer an option. It's no longer an option, man. With this only leading to tribalism, hatred and violence. And that will always escalate. So this is sad. This is unjust, and regardless, if I don't agree with her, I will always fight for her right to say and speak her hateful nonsense. Hoping one day we can just calm down the hostilities, man. Just calm it down a little. Unite once again under our commonalities and discuss our opposing viewpoints over a pint and under the British skies. So Sasha Johnson, who is fighting for her life in hospital as we speak, get well soon. I mean it. And lastly, let's end on something funny. The wokest ginger, a literal walking definition of privilege, Prince Harry, moves to the United States, calls the First Amendment bonkers, upsets everyone, and is about to do another Oprah interview where a prince tells the paupers his troubles and strifes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, America. I'm sorry, but we finally f***ed him off to you lot, so no givesies backsies, all right? You got him now. So thank you so much for joining me again. That's episode 5, man. That's it. You know what I mean? It feels like me I get into me groove. Me I get into me groove. Me I get into me groove, man. You know what I mean? We're getting into a nice little groove there. But please like, share, and subscribe because They're already running ads, and we're not even monetized on our material. So we could really use a little bit of help, you know? And join us next time. And let's see what we can see.